Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Berlin and Toronto-based jazz trumpeter, improviser, and composer Lina Allemano. We caught up with her in early May 2021 to talk about the COVID pandemic, her projects, her history in jazz, and hope for the future. This Edmonton Alberta-born musician is always engaged in an active international career, performing and recording cutting-edge contemporary music, primarily in experimental, conceptual, improvised, and jazz environments. She is educated in both classical and jazz trumpet. Her story is a great one. Enjoy. Lina, thank you for taking a minute to talk with Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Sure. Well, thanks for getting in touch.
You bet. And you bet. And as we kind of touched before we started recording, we were kind of talking about how I got in touch with you and what's going on and recordings and all of that. And I'm curious, what are you working on? What have you been doing during this pandemic? How has it been for you?
It's, of course it's been complicated, I guess, like for most people. Maybe my situation is a little more unusual because I was keeping this kind of double city life thing going on, which I was living between Toronto and Berlin. So I would be in each city for about 3 months and then go to the other one and then back and forth like that. So it was kind of like living in two places at once in some ways. Because when I was away from one city for 3 months, a lot of people didn't necessarily notice I was gone. And so I think people had the impression that, people in Toronto thought that I lived in Toronto and people in Berlin think I live in Berlin. So that was sort of how I was doing things for quite a few years, as regularly as I could, and it was really working, and I really loved it in a lot of ways. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and that totally just fell away. So I've been essentially just stuck. I mean, I don't mean to sound too negative, but by using the word stuck, but I've been stuck in Toronto this whole time, and so that essentially means I haven't been in Berlin for now, just because of how the timing was. Like I was just about to go on my Berlin chunk when the pandemic hit, so I had already been away for 3 months. Anyway, I haven't actually been there for about a year and a half now, aside from I did make it to the Berlin Jazz Festival in November, and that was in between waves, I guess. There were still no restrictions. I could travel from Canada to Germany without having to quarantine right at that time. But as soon as I got there, then things, got bad again. And then I had to leave. So I was able to do a couple of gigs at the Berlin Jazz Festival, but they were, of course, only live streamed. Last minute, there was, they had to, go into lockdown. So yeah, I mean, I haven't done a gig for a live audience since March 8th, 2020.
What was the last gig like?
That gig on March 8th, 2020?
Yeah.
It was really nice. It was just here in Toronto, at this great little club called the Transac, which we used to play at all the time, pretty much. I had a monthly gig there for many, many years. And then a lot of my colleagues also have monthly gigs there, so we all kind of play there all the time. So it's a great place to play. And that's where I did my solo CD release on March 8th last year. So that was awesome. And then the next day I was supposed to go to Berlin, and then the next day after that, the pandemic was, declared. It was a big mess.
Yeah.
Big mess. But on March 8th, 2020, I didn't know anything about that, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I remember that time well. What do you hope we all get when we get back to it, kind of things start opening back up? What do you hope we realize about the power of live music when you're back on stage and we're back in the audience?
Right. I think, I think it's going to be, I think people they're just going to feel it. Like it's been so painful for so many people. I think not only musicians, but a lot of fans and, just regular type people who don't even go to live music very often. I mean, that's the thing that people talk about a lot. I feel like I hope that they'll appreciate it for a while longer. Like, of course they're going to right away. Everyone's going to be like, "Wow, that was amazing," but then how soon will it'll just be taken for granted again? I don't know. I guess that's natural. Maybe being a human, you just adapt again. But I mean, yeah, for sure, one hopes it'll be a little more special for everybody to just that, feeling the vibrations of the instruments in your body. That's something you can't do from a recording, and that's going to be amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't either. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood. How did the world of jazz open up to you? How did music become your life?
Okay, so I've been playing. I started playing piano when I was 4, and my dad is a big jazz fan, huge jazz fan. He's from a very small town in Ontario, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. But he's been collecting downbeat magazines since he was 16, I think, and he never missed an issue. Or I think maybe there's one issue he doesn't have in all those years. So that's kind of, I grew up around that. So there's always jazz going on in the house, and it just seemed like a normal thing. And my dad is a musician as well, not really in the same vein as what I'm doing, but. And then when I was 10, I wasn't really connecting with the piano anymore, and so my dad just said, "Well, that's fine. You can choose another instrument." So he collects brass instruments, so that seemed like a normal choice. I could pick any of these brass instruments, and my older brother was playing trumpet, and I thought my brother was pretty cool, so I wanted to do that too. So that's how I started with the trumpet. And then it just seemed kind of natural pretty quickly. And when I was 12, I was taking classical trumpet lessons with a symphony player in the town that I'm from called Edmonton, Alberta, which is also kind of far away up north in Alberta. I won this concerto competition when I was 12, and I got to play a solo with the orchestra, and that was, of course, extremely thrilling. And I think since then I was like, well, yeah, this is something I can do, and it's super fun. And somehow I didn't have any stage fright or anything like that. So and then the jazz thing, was also a natural kind of progression because it was just in the house. I just knew all that music, and it was just kind of already in my body. So. Yeah.
Cool.
That was my childhood, yeah.
So, what was the first live jazz show you saw that really made you think that would be something you'd love to do?
That's a really good question. I've been going to live jazz shows since I was, before I can even remember. So, because actually in Edmonton, I don't know if you know, or if your listeners would know anything about Edmonton, but back in the day, we had this amazing club. It's still there, actually. It's called the Yardbird Suite, and there's a jazz society there. And there was one particular guy who really made a lot of stuff happen in that town. And all of the touring acts that were going through the States and Canada, they would go to all the major places, and for some reason, they would also come to Edmonton. So I got to see, pretty much everybody. And since I was little, so I don't even know where to start with naming names of the guys that I've seen. One person I did come to Edmonton, but somehow I missed that, and then he died.
Now that you've been doing this for a while, what do you look forward to the most as a professional musician each day you wake up?
It's hard to remove myself from that right now, but it's nice to think about being a musician again. Some days I'm kind of confused because. It has been so long since I've played music.
Yeah.
Studio a bit after the second wave here in January and February. We had a little opening, so we did do some studio work before the third wave hit. I'm just looking forward to being creative again with other people, just developing things with other people and communicating on that level through music. That's something I've really been missing, and I just always assumed I would just continue to do that because it's the thing that I like to do the most. I like to write music a lot too, and which I've been trying to do during the pandemic, but without that other kind of exchange element, the artistic exchange with other humans. It's really, it's a bit sad. Like it's really hard to pull that creativity out of yourself, I find, without any kind of other interaction.
So let's say you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger self, and around the time that you were becoming a professional, and you could give your younger self one piece of advice based on what you've experienced all of these years. And what would that one piece of advice be?
Wow. Only one piece of advice?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I guess I would, I don't feel like I've made any mistakes necessarily. Sometimes I've been discouraged by various situations, but I think, I never questioned my commitment to the music or to being a musician. Actually, it's stuff like just do your thing. Like, that's what you need and want to do, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't. For sure, I've had people tell me that I couldn't, or that I wouldn't be able to, and it hasn't been enough to be traumatizing or anything, but for sure those little incidents they do stick out in your mind. Like when I was thinking back, when you asked me that question, I was thinking, because of such and such, I didn't want to do such and such or something. But why would you say that to a young person? I don't know.
Yeah.
Those kind of incidents, they just sort of made me go like, I'm gonna do this. I am a trumpet player. I'm gonna do it.
Why do you love jazz?
Oh, so many reasons. I love improvising. Like I was saying before, I love the exchange. It's a very intimate when you're improvising with other musicians. It's very personal music, or at least the way I like to play it, or the way I like to think of it, and the players that I like. It's very individualistic, and it's really about expressing yourself, and of course it's also it's a complex. Well, all music is complex to a certain extent, I guess. But it takes a lot of study and dedication, I think, to get a good understanding of the history of the music, and I also appreciate that part of it. So it's challenging, but it's also exhilarating, emotionally and also intellectually, I guess.
Everyone has a perception or an interpretation of you. Your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh man, that is a good question, and that it's really interesting because this is a question that I've been really recently thinking about, because during the pandemic, I have been asking myself that a lot, because I normally would never question. Of course, I'm a musician. But when you're not really able to do that for such a long period of time, you do start to wonder who you are. Or at least I do. It's a question. Like if somebody said, "Well, what if this is the new way of that things are? The music isn't really coming back in the same way that it was, or you have to continue to be isolated and not travel and not play music. And what would you do, or who would you be?" And that has really stumped me. I've not been able to answer that yet, because since I've been 10 or 12, this is who I thought I was. So I hope I don't have to change who I am or who I think I am. And I call myself an artist, and I'm proud of that. And I think it's an important thing to identify as such. I think maybe in my younger days, maybe that's another thing I would tell my younger self. It's okay to be an artist, and it's okay to want to be an artist. And it took me a while to get to the point where I was confident enough to say, I am an artist. This is what I do. I don't have to feel ashamed about that.
That's great. That's a great answer. That's a great way to wrap everything up. Lina, thank you for taking some time out for Neon Jazz today. Good luck with, everything coming up, the return to the stage and beyond.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciated that you got in touch. It's really nice to have, the feeling that there's, like I was saying before, that the music is getting out there.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Berlin, Toronto, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Lina for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.